Is your axe sharpened?
I'm ready for the speared in.
And the thunder of shields, yes. It's good to have you with us.
To fight beside such legends is an honor.
Hey everyone, this is Matt and I'm here with Louise, who has spent 7 entire human hours playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so she's quite excited.
Yes, just a bit. Just a tiny bit, Matt. Just a small bit excited.
I feel like you're really trying to downplay it right now. This is the calm before the storm, I promise you.
Sorry.
So obviously, yeah, you are a massive Assassin's Creed fan, so I'm hoping you'll be able to dive into all the details for us and give us a sense of exactly what that experience was like. And to start with, we're going to talk about the world later on, but let's talk about the sort of the little bits, so the actual settlements themselves. Can you give us a sense of what those are like and how it feels different?
Well, so it's just the one, actually. So obviously we've waited 2 years since Odyssey, and I have counted every single one of those months and minutes and hours and seconds. I've counted all of those before Assassin's Creed Valhalla arrives. But I think what previous Assassin's games have done, and if you played in Assassin's Creed 2, for instance, you built up your hometown of Monteriggioni, and there you upgraded things, you built new things, you made it so that you bought medicine for cheaper, or you bought more art, or you had somewhere to show off your weapons. And we've had a couple of bits like that in Assassins through the years. You know, in Syndicate we had a train that was your moving hideout around London, but we haven't had that in either Origins or Odyssey. So what the settlement does in Assassin's Creed Valhalla is it brings that back. So you have this home away from home, because you've come from Norway for sort of political reasons to take over England, basically, and this English settlement is your home village for your Vikings. And here, this was the first time we were seeing this. Yet again, you've got buildings to upgrade, you've got a great longhouse where you can drink and you can sit on a throne in your longhouse and it looks amazing. You can just pop yourself there and just take in the world. But
I would have that as a game on its own.
Of course you would. The Longhouse Simulator. It's really cool that they've given you a home again. There's a bell there that at some point I've heard, I didn't manage to do it, where you ring the bell and you can have a feast. And if you have a feast, then you get loads of buffs. So then you can go and take on things and you'll have better armour and you'll have better food and it will increase your charisma and do all kinds of things, simply because you settled down with your Viking chums and had a drink, which is cool. So also in the settlement there was a tattoo studio, which I really liked, so you can go and customise your Eivor however they look, however you want them to look. You can change their hair, you can put arm tattoos or chest tattoos. And then what's also amazing, and this is they've done this kind of for the first time, is you can actually make different bits of your armour invisible so that you just can look exactly as you want, but you've still got the buffs and the support of that armour. So you can just go around so that you can just see all your tattoos, or I had it just so that my helmet was off so that I could look at Eivor's brilliant face and face tattoos. So that's cool. And I did fishing, which is quite nice, man. Just getting to stand at the riverside, you know, before you get on your long ship, before you do any of that, just popping in a fishing line. And that is a nice peaceful thing to do, but also, obviously, it has another meaning in the sort of economy of things, because if you catch enough certain types of fish, then you can take them to I think it's a little boy that works at the fish sort of shop.
Are you the man in charge?
It's my grandfather, really. But he says the best way to learn responsibility is by working.
And you can then eat better feasts if you've got more fish going in and you're catching certain things. So everything all kind of works together to upgrade things, and you can buy maps, which will then help you find treasure. So all of this is going to be at the heart of Valhalla, so that every time you pop out on your long ship and you come back, you're always going to feel like you can come back to this home, which you're constantly upgrading. So I can see myself spending a lot of time in the settlement.
I mean, I think we can probably end the video there. I'm sold.
You done?
That's it
That's
for me.
you? Fishing?
Thrones, long ships, fishing, tattoos.
Feasts.
That's feasts, yeah. I feel like we probably should add a little bit more detail, though, for people who aren't already sold on just that idea.
Yeah.
I must be on my way now. Goodbye.
Farewell, Eivor!
You kind of alluded to it a bit there, how it compares to old Assassin's Creed games. I think, you know, one of the most important things is, can you be an actual assassin, and does it still feel like it's from the same world?
Yeah, so that was the big change with Origins and Odyssey, really, because that was Ubi's first sort of step into massive RPG territory, and I think we can agree that Odyssey was an astonishing feat of sort of RPG-osity for a franchise that had previously not had any decision-making or not had quite the same size of world. But I think what people felt like was missing in Odyssey, especially Odyssey, because you didn't have the hidden blade anymore. At least in Origins, you got the hidden blade for the first time and you kind of got a little history lesson of it. That just wasn't there in Odyssey. You had the broken spear of Leonidas, you were basically a superhero, you could kick people halfway across the map, but you didn't have a hidden blade, so there was no button that you could press to go assassinate. Now, what's changed now in Valhalla is they've gone, actually, you should be stabbing people as an assassin, so you have your hidden blade back. But also, yes, you have the ability to stealth around, but there's a new radio menu, which, if you bring up, will give you the chance to call your horse, blow your horn, get your torch, or don your cloak.
Shouldn't be seen. Better be hooded.
Now that cloak, the minute you put it on, suddenly you're playing an Assassin's Creed game. Like, you are literally playing you could look at it and you say, I am now a hooded person in a place where I need to be sneaky. So they've brought back this hood. They've brought back social stealth, which means that previously in Assassin's Creed 2, etc., you could blend in with monks in the cities, you could blend in with people, just crowds in general. You can do that again. So you can sneak past people, which is not something that we've had for a while, because I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of time firing flaming arrows at things and making things explode. So there's actually the hint, not just the hint of a proper Assassin's game, but you can now be stealthy. And I actually found a couple of interesting things in the world where you can come up to a sort of sitting spot and you can say blend, and you'll take a seat. So it's a bit like Assassin's Creed 3 really pushed that forward, where you could sit or you could do painting walls, etc. So now you can do that and get involved. I was making a bell. I approached a sort of workspace and there was a bell on it and I could stand next to it and sort of chip away at it, and that was me blending in while wearing my hood. I mean, who really is not going to not see a Viking standing making a bell? But hey, that's how you can blend now. So I think the fact that now I felt like I could sneak around, and very, very importantly, before we go into anything else, hey, Matt, hey is back.
Hey yourself.
Hey, oh, dear me. So, hay's been a big thing in Assassin's Creed. We've always joked about these haystacks that are just these hay carts even, that are underneath huge heights for you to dive into. Now they're properly back. And the thing was, in previous Assassin's games, if you dived into hay, you stayed there because you could then be sneaky and stab someone. Meanwhile, in Odyssey, when you jumped into hay after you'd done a leap of faith, you automatically jumped out. Now, how are you going to stab someone from inside the hay if it automatically kicks you out? So the way that we know that Valhalla is going to let us do that is it doesn't kick us out of the hay, it just lets us stay there. But I got so excited, Matt. I was going through an area and I spotted a hay cart and there was a man standing in front of it, and I could have not been happier. I think I actually squeaked, made a beeline straight for this little hay cart so I could get in there. And then I waited ages because he wouldn't do what I wanted him to do so that I could assassinate him.
Crawled into the brush, have you?
But when I eventually pressed that button to assassinate, it was suddenly like, that's me. I'm playing Assassin's Creed again. But I also have all the RPG, all the everything else, all the new things, all the world, all the settlements that makes it a 2020 game. So suddenly I do feel if you want to be an assassin, you can be again, which is really exciting.
That is cool, and your enthusiasm for it is infectious. I honestly don't think I've ever heard anyone as excited about hay before. To sort of bring it back round to Viking-y stuff, tell me a bit about the raids, beloved of Vikings.
Beloved of Vikings, raids are cool. So because you have your longship, which you can pretty much get to you wherever you are, as long as there's water. If you're standing by a river, you can get your longship. If you're standing in the middle of, a mountain, you can't get your longship. But there are a lot of rivers everywhere, thankfully, in England, that if you stand next to and call your longship, your fellow Vikings rock up, and then you can command them to take you down the river.
To the waves.
as you go along the river, you will get a prompt that says raid. I was like, yes, I definitely want to raid. And this is basically monasteries, castles, towns that you just want to pillage, really. So you want to nick all their stuff. So you arrive in and everyone obviously tries to kill you, and you've got your fellow Vikings who are fighting alongside you, and you have to keep an eye on them, make sure you revive them, and you want to go into certain areas to basically loot them. So if you use it's not eagle vision, it's Odin's vision, obviously, now. So if you turn that on, you'll see glowing areas on the map, which is where you want your gold stuff, is stuff you really want.
Give me a hand over here.
And you also, it's quite cool, you have to get people to help you, maybe get through doors or to open chests, because the lids of them are so heavy, and then you get to loot the things like carbon ingots, which you'll hide inside, which are vital for things like weapon upgrades. So you're constantly upgrading your weapons. You can take them back to a merchant in the settlement, but you can also upgrade on the fly. So if you want your dual-wielded axe to be a little more powerful, you can just upgrade them with the carbon ingots. And closer to the end of the game, closer to the end of my demo even, I had picked up this amazing, I think it was called the Sepulture Axe, and it was gold, and it had all these great engravings on it. But it was absolutely murderous, and I upgraded it a couple of times to the point where every time I did a critical hit, it went on fire. So it's the fact that what they've managed to do is they've managed to, yes, it feels like an Assassin's Creed game again, but it also still feels like that lovely big playground that Odyssey offered of ludicrous weaponry with all kinds of perks. So what you've also got are runes that you can embed into each of your weapons, so you can really, really customize them to exactly how you want to play, and that felt really important, really, for having those choices. So yes, you can go into raids, all axes blazing, quite literally. But you could also not do a raid, and you could sneak into these areas, and you could upgrade your skill tree in the direction of, there's chain assassinations are back. I could see that on a skill tree. I didn't manage to upgrade to it, but you've now got, if you kill someone, then you can throw a little axe at the next person, and these are things that are pivotal to the Assassin's Creed franchise. But it's about having those choices if you want them, and if you don't want to play it like that, if you do want to go in with a flaming axe and all of your fellow Vikings roaring, you can do that too. So I really like that that's now very much a valid choice.
Let's talk a little bit about the playground, as you called it itself. So I'm English. I'm from the East Midlands. So when I play this game, will I see loads of stuff that I recognise? Will it feel like home?
I mean, you'll certainly hear names which are the original versions of where you were from. So I was in, I'm going to try and say it, Leicestershire. That's the world that I spent 7 hours in, was Leicestershire, which
I can probably work that out.
Yes, we can probably imagine that's Leicestershire. But there are a lot of hills, Matt, and there's quite a lot of hills. And sort of, there's not that many hills in England.
They're gone now.
They're not there. For some reason, they're not there. But I think about the world itself is really, it is sprawling like Odyssey. Not totally overwhelming, although I didn't see the rest of the map. My section felt quite sizable enough.
Please help! This brute has me trapped in this sultry tower.
Shut your mouth!
They have these things called world events, which are displayed by a little rune, a little glowing rune. And world events are quite interesting because these are just little extra story elements, so it wasn't like endless quests. It wasn't endless Witcher-style quests I was uncovering aside from the story missions.
What are you really doing in there?
Oh God, no! It was only a game, a romp.
I saw a man holding you against your will.
All a part of the seduction. Oh God. You really thought my life was in danger?
It was just little things, so I ended up under a bridge where there was a woman locked behind some bars, and she asked me for viper eggs.
Say that again?
You heard me. I need eggs. Viper eggs. Crusty little won't go away.
And I thought, okay, sure, I'll bring you viper eggs. So I went off, and thankfully there were some snakes very nearby. So I started, pinning snakes with arrows, which has been fun since Assassin's Creed Origins. Got the viper eggs, took them to her, and every time I took them to her, she would eat them, and then there would be a gaseous outburst, which is exactly what it sounds like. And then she gave me a thing. But it was the fact that there was basically just a giant wind joke in there.
Well, have you nothing to say after such a forceful breaking of wind?
It blew me away.
And also, when I came out of that area, I went up a series of ladders, and there was literally people above that were getting this green gas that was escaping the drains, and they were complaining about it. So it was just this weird, quirky, humorous moment. And I kept finding these. I found a fight club in this tiny hut where you had to go downstairs, and I had to do some flighting, which is the sort of Viking poem offs that you can have to get in there.
Watching you rub bodies was an absolute treat. You moved just like a noodle. Favourite thing to eat.
But it's all these little things that mean that even trying to get to one place in Valhalla is going to be an absolute nightmare because there are so many distractions on the way. So there's that lovely sense of discovery that just loses hours. So I can't wait for that.
I presume that loads of these things are probably based on like old folklore and history and things like that as well. So
they tend to try and cram that stuff in. But yeah, it's interesting.
Using that as an excuse to throw to the folklore video that we did.
Do that. Watch that.
So there you go. That's on screen now.
I've heard all Danes are cursed with slow brains and fat tongues. Care to prove me wrong?
Most men choose to be loud or stupid. Impressed that you manage both. I will take you on.
Brilliant. Some fighting spirit. How about a wager?
So finally then, you've talked about all the ways it's like old Assassin's Creed games, and we've talked a little bit about how it's still got that kind of broad, sprawling feel to it. Can you tell me a little bit about the RPG elements? How do they stack up?
Yeah, so I experienced one arc of Led of Chestershire, so that's one sort of story arc. And what was interesting was you still have, obviously, the same things that you had from Origins, well, from Odyssey especially, of different responses. So you can make decisions that genuinely matter in the world. I mean, I got a nice ending for Odyssey, but I was very aware that there were all kinds of nasty endings that I also could have got. That seems very clear in Valhalla.
We've given you silver, fed your people, and yet in spite of all this, your encroachment on my kingdom continues. No more! We will die defending what is ours.
There are all kinds of politics and arguments, and this is, as ever, Assassin's Creed is about the struggle for power. It's about, the Vikings arriving in England and saying, hey, we'd like our people to be on all of these multiple thrones instead of English people. And there's a lot of politics, then there's a lot of decision making, so Eivor is quite a key part of that. And I made some decisions that then had an immediate consequence. And I won't spoil anything here, but there was actually, I was quite impressed. There was a big decision that I made at the end of this arc, which actually affected the entire rest of the game and how the world worked, which was really impressive. And it was a small part of it, but it was big enough to think, that's me just changed the way the game's going to work. So that was only one decision that I made, and I imagine there'll be a lot of other decisions. But again, in the RPG element side of things, and especially in your sort of speccing your character, you can up your charisma. So if you have a certain amount of charisma, then you can say certain things and you can get certain things to happen. And if you can't, then you'll actually see it grayed out on screen. So you'll have a little symbol next to it, which is basically like, oh, you're not charismatic enough.
I can relate to that.
Exactly, all the time, Matt, right?
Settle for half that amount and maybe Ceolwulf's first command won't be for your head on a platter.
You've got stones.
You're not charismatic enough to have this response, but it's the fact that it's there. It's kind of like that cyberpunk thing where you can see,
that's really RPG.
You can see what you would have had if you were only, smart enough, really. So that's a really interesting decision that they've made, and I really feel like being able to decide how you want to approach things, how you want to kill things, how you want to spec your weapons, and how you want to respond in specific situations is actually something that's really big and bold, despite the fact that Assassins has been doing RPGs for 3 years now. So it's going to be very interesting.
Out, Ivar. Now.
All right. But if you mean to stay, mind the smell after they finish this.
Final question as ever, Louise. How long have we got to wait?
Not very long. Assassin's Creed Valhalla will be out on November 10th.
Amazing. That is loads of information.
Yes,
but if
sorry.
you have any specific... No, don't be. That's great. And if anyone does have any specific questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments and we'll see if we can get them answered.
Definitely.
And if you found that interesting and if you learned anything new and if you're excited about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, go on and give this video a like, and please do subscribe to the channel and ring the bell, the Viking-made bell, the Viking-made stealth bell, that's what we're calling it now.
That's it.
So you know when our next video lands. Thank you for watching.